one of the observations I've made is that a lot of people used to say, I don't work in small group, I just can't make enough money in it. They like the larger cases. Technology changes this. I would contend that if you wanted to roll out pet insurance, identity theft, individual life insurance, you name it, pick the mix from a marketplace to a 5,000 employee group, that the gatekeepers and HR would make it virtually impossible to get that rolled out. But if you went to 510 employee groups with the rinse and repeat play like that, they'd roll out the red carpet because you're now making their company look like a Fortune 500 company. And when you compare the PEPMs, I don't care what state you're in, if you're in a high state or a low state on small group medical compared to large group, there's a world of difference. So if you look at a small group as not just being something that you have to drive out to and spend 16 hours on and enrolling in the paper-based days for 16 lives, I get it. That doesn't make sense, especially if you're in LA or a market where you could do one group a day that way. But if you, without leaving your office, in an automated fashion, can take all of these small groups, provide a much larger holistic set of benefits inside of a technology envelope, you are easily looking at PEPMs that range from $75 to $100 per employee per month. Find me a small group, a large group where you can come close to that. So in the days where they say, I need 10 small groups to be the same thing as a 100 life group, it's the other way around. 10 life group can now generate as much revenue as 100.
Welcome to the Rockstars Rocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey, Rockstars, welcome back to another episode of Rockstars Rocking, where you know it. Come on, you know it. If you're tuning in, we only have the best, the most top rock stars in their given profession each and every week. And this week is no different. Please, everybody, help me welcome my good friend, David Reid, founder and CEO of Ease, a Ben Tech solution out of everywhere, guys, because they're a national firm, and we're going to talk all about it. So, David, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure, and I'm excited to really dig in and start getting going with some of these questions that I've been dying to ask you. So, unless you have any objections, can I just kind of dive right in, my friend?
No objections. Hope to meet your expectations here.
I think you'll do that for sure. So, you have a very robust tech platform in the employee benefits and insurance industry, and I want to talk all about it and so forth. But before I dig into that, I want to kind of talk about your background for at least a couple minutes and find out how you got into this. Like, you were born for technology. You woke up as a little boy and said, "Mommy, I want to build a tech platform," and I don't even know what that means. Like, I can't imagine that came out of your mouth as a little kid. So tell me, how did you get into the benefits world, and how did you really transition into technology?
It's far from what you described there. I kind of fell into the insurance industry. I wanted to be a stockbroker and went to work for a place called Continental Brokerage, which turned out to be an insurance brokerage. I thought all brokers were stockbrokers, but I was young. We're talking 36 plus years ago. And I went to work for a company called John Alden, which a lot of people on this may have worked there just like I did as a rep calling on insurance agents, like I eventually became. But ultimately, I became an insurance broker, recruited from somebody that I called on while I was working at Lincoln National. And that was the beginning of the path. It was back when the Apple computers came out when I was in college. I was a debater. I dabbled in programming myself, not because I wanted to be an engineer or build software, but I was using it as a tool to solve my own problems. I continued to do this as a broker. I wrote a insurance quoting program. For those of you from Minnesota that see this, you can remember we've been on an ACA-like world for a long time where we had guaranteed issue, no pre-existing conditions, rates had to be filed, they were age banded, much like what we live in now in the ACA is what I grew up on as a young broker in Minnesota. So I wrote a database that would allow me to quote because all these rates had to be filed like they are now. And eventually, we all know we have what we call friendly competitors in the business, where if I called on a group of yours, Eric, I would say, I'm going to pass. You're in good hands with Eric. Well, those friendly competitors started using my software. Eventually, I met a guy named Courtney Girton. He's the co-founder of Ease. He was also from Minnesota. It's kind of funny. I describe it as he worked for a software company, and he touched on HR, and he really liked it. So he went out and got his insurance license, thinking he would kind of like take over the insurance industry with technology. And that's how we crossed paths. And we found out I was a pretty good insurance broker, but not so good an engineer. And he was a really good engineer and not so good of an insurance broker. But we striked up a partnership. And that's what eventually brought me to Silicon Valley, where they call me a purpose-driven founder. A lot of people go to the Valley to start a software company and become a trillionaire, or whatever the big number is now. It used to be something less than that. But I really put my head down on this, is that I wanted to build a really great software program that would be usable by small businesses, small as 2, 3, 4, 5 employees, or 50, 100, 200, and that it would be possible for an insurance broker to learn how to use it themselves and to build and service their own groups, because I thought it was really the only practical way. At a prize, if people looked at my resume, we were an EDI firm, and we deployed on a product called Benefits Connect. I was actually the very first broker user of Benefits Connect. Also,
I remember that.
Yeah, it's a product out of Minnesota. And they support B-Swift now. They're at a prize as well. But what I learned there is there just really wasn't a good solution for a broker who's got a whole bunch of small groups that they want to digitize. And we'll probably get into this more, but it's not just the efficiency of digitizing. It's that small businesses have a problem today. It's a competitive job market. And one of the most important things, in fact, number 2 after salary, is benefits. And a small business needs to make their plan look like a Fortune 500 company. And with the combination of technology and a broader, more holistic offering of benefits, which requires technology to do it, there's some big time opportunities in the SMB space. In fact, I think it's the hottest opportunity in the entire segment of the industry.
So first off, it's a classic story. I love how you and your co-founder got together and built something beautiful and amazing. I mean, you played on each other's strengths and weaknesses, which is perfect, which is what made you guys such a great team. And I really like what you said about the Fortune 500 perception, right? And I talk about that all the time with my clients. In fact, you probably don't know much about me yet, but my bread and butter for 23 years in the insurance business now has always been small, mid-sized cases. We have hundreds and hundreds of cases across the country, and our average size group is probably 50 to 100 lives, with many under 50. Yeah, we have some big ones, sure, but I've always been a volume guy. So I just realized quickly in my sales and insurance career that clients transition, they leave, things happens, I get it. But, if a 10,000 person company leaves, that hurts. But if a 10-person group leaves, yeah, I don't want them to leave, but it's not going to break me. So I talk about how business owners should have benefits that are reminiscent of a Fortune 500 company. I'm a big perception equals reality guy. So I couldn't agree with you more on that note. So let me ask you this. When it comes to Ease, I mean, I'm a marketing guy and a branding guy. I studied marketing. I love marketing. What made you change the name from Ease Central to dropping the word Central and going direct to Ease a few years ago? I still, because I'm old school, I still call it Ease Central, and I have to correct myself sometimes. What brought about that change?
I can tell you exactly what brought that change along. It was the availability of the domain ease.com. So we believe, so you roll back to Courtney and me very early. We were toying around with this company called Ease in Minnesota. And it was where we first put it. And then we couldn't get ease.com. So we were actually first called Enrollees. And when we were first venture funded, we were enrollees.com because we could get enrollees.com. We just believed that the company name, the domain name must be one and the same. And then as we relaunched the product in September of 2015, after we were venture funded, we didn't want to be pigeonholed as just enrollment because we're a broader platform. We're a platform that allows you to accommodate benefits, HR, payroll, and we didn't want to be construed as just an enrollment firm. So the best name we could come up with was East Central to kind of make it like the middle.
Right.
But we worked diligently for a couple of years. We had our eye on a domain called ease.com. The plan was to acquire it, which we eventually successfully did, and then to rename the company Ease, which is what we're about. Because like what it's about here is we want to make things easy, and we happen to have a great name to be able to use that term.
I like it. I really like it. So, so it's actually the opposite of what I thought. I figured you guys were always East Central, and then you eventually just said, "Oh, we'll be Ease." But it was quite the opposite. I like that. You always wanted to be Ease. You kept your eye on the prize, and you didn't even let it stop you. You started building the company and putting it to market, and you just realized that one day you would own that domain. That's cool. I like that a lot.
Matter of when.
Yeah, timing's everything. So now you mentioned how you always wanted to put together a solution that was for, small group, mid-sized group, 2, 3, 4 employees, all the way up to a couple hundred. Talk about Ease's vision for the future. Like, I know you're still, at least from my experience, and I certainly don't want to offend you, but from what I've seen, you guys still market it as the small, mid-sized business, 2 to 200 roughly. But I know it can do more than 200 lives. So, where do you see the vision of the company going? Do you ever feel like you can, you'll start marketing to swim more upstream, 500, 1,000, 5,000? Is that a space you want to start to play in at some point, or you tell me your thoughts?
Well, it's a great question. So I generally speaking, I take this philosophy that to decide what to do is to decide what not to do. And you really can't do everything. So if I were to look off into the future of Ease, I actually think that we've been successful enough and we secured a place where if we keep doing the right things, we will be an institution in the space of benefits administration. We will logically, like all do, is go up market. That level of disruption, many, many times it's that, like, it's not lost on us that people who use our product will say, well, why can't I use it on a 500 employee group or 1,000 employee group? And the answer to that question is it works absolutely great on that size of a group.
Right.
Size is not a restriction.
I've seen it personally.
All right, I like that. So in the larger, what I believe it really boils down to is the level of functionality that has to be contained inside the product. And the need that we were trying to solve with Ease is that there really wasn't an easy solution that could be quickly deployed across a book of small cases. And in order to do that, you need to limit the certain functionality of the product in order to bring a level of simplicity to it. And as the product evolves, we will accommodate larger cases. Areas where things like customization around branding and things that are really important for large companies. But for the foreseeable future, our plan is to take over the SMB space, predominantly a heavy focus on ACA. And one of the reasons there is that if you take people who are really watching the space that we're talking about here today, and you ask them for the top 5 enrollment solutions in the 500 plus market, you'll get multiple lists that have overlapping carriers, but you will not get the same list of 5 carriers. You ask about solutions in the under 100 space, and I think my company is going to be on the number 1 or number 2 slot every single time.
I mean, I can attest for that because I have broker partners that ask me for advice on your technology and your competitor technology almost every day. I mean, no joke. We're recording this now, happens to be on a Tuesday, but yesterday on a Monday, I had a call in the late part of the day with a broker client partner of mine in the Dallas, Texas area. And we just got to talking and she said, "What's your opinion on technology?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, we're currently doing demos with Ease," and she named a couple other companies. And I'm like, "Oh, well, I absolutely can tell you I have an opinion. I know the ins and outs of all of that stuff. So let me share." And she said she hung up feeling so much more comfortable understanding what's out there. But I assure you, you were on the list. But moreover, it wasn't a very long list. There's not that many that I would consider that specialize in that downstream market right now. At least that's my opinion.
76% of businesses in America have under 10 employees, 85% have under 15 employees. The SMB space represents 60 million employees. It's a heavily underserved marketplace. But we've got over 2.5 million employees on our platform. So one of the things I'm proud to say is by focusing on the space today, the small business space, 4% of people in America make their benefit decisions on our platform. And we're the newest one on the block. And I think that speaks to, we are focused on the SMB space.
Mhm.
And we think it has very unique needs. And we're focusing on that to make it easy for those businesses that deserve and want to have a Fortune 500 style benefit offering.
No, you mentioned a moment ago, and I wanted to come back to it. You said about ACA, and I know you have a passion and a vision for owning, every ACA account. Can you elaborate more on that and the rationale behind it?
Well, a couple of things about it. First of all, when you look at the ACA, what happened with the PACE Act on states repealing or not repealing, you still have California, Colorado, New York that are in the SMB ACA space up to 100 employees. And between New York and California, California alone is 20% of the SMBs in the country. Okay, so I mean, we're talking a huge market all by itself over there. The earlier stats I mentioned, as far as the number of small businesses that are in the SMB space. So, and I was a broker, as you mentioned, through my career, and I worked in small business, but I wasn't necessarily hunting 5 and 10 life groups. But just the reality is, if you are going to work in the SMB space and you accumulate 100 cases, the odds would say that 3 out of 4 are going to be under 10. So sure. Everybody has a very strong need for that type of a solution. And one of the things I want to do when I work with somebody like you, Eric, is that if I'm doing a killer job on 3 out of 4 of your cases, you're going to muse me on every case that goes up market right. From what you can. Now, with respect to the ACA, as we know, the way medical plans work, they're very different. Now there's level funded plans and alternatives. And I think the superpower of the broker is to speak to these alternatives and innovative things around, demonstrating their expertise and consultative capabilities. But at the end of the day, you show me a group under 50 and 99 times out of 100, I will show you a group that's on a fully insured ACA medical plan off the shelf. And so those are age banded every year from 19 to 65. The SBCs, they're standardized, they're filed, but there's tens of thousands of these. And so it's become a very, very busy space that lends itself so much to a platform like Ease, where, for example, we have every ACA medical plan in our platform. So if you want to quote them or if you want to build them, unlike every other platform in existence, you're not out there starting from scratch, entering the benefits, the code, entering the rates, or getting an Excel spreadsheet where you've organized the rates from 19 to 65. I mean, it's like 46 different age. And now today, when you deal with a small group, depends on the state again, but I see in places like California, people are offering 5, 6, 8, 10 medical plans.
Right.
Well, imagine a solution that allows you to just pick those 10 plans from a menu and all the rates, the SBCs and the benefit summaries automatically load. Right. That's what Ease does. And in a small group space, we've built unique tools. That's just one example of a unique tool set that in the ACA space is a need that doesn't exist anywhere else. And we
let's talk about you guys started mostly, in my opinion, it looks like you started more on the West Coast, Midwest, West Coast. And from what I've seen, because I have brokers on in every state for the most part, I see that brokers that I meet brand new that are in the West or Midwest, they either have or they use Ease through like a GA or something, but they use it and they're comfortable with it. And then I see the opposite more so on the East Coast with some of your competitors. I have seen you continually grow. So do you have a strategic specific growth strategy to move West to East? Are you heavy loaded on the East for sales teams or what's that plan? Or is it really just organic?
Yep. It's a little bit of everything. The first one is we do have a plan, and just to level set how we ended up in certain marketplaces. My co-founder and I are from Minnesota. I spent the first 48 years of my life there. I was a broker there. I knew the community there very well. And I think it's safe to say, Ease is kind of like milk in people's refrigerator in Minnesota. You're hard pressed to find. And I know them all. That's one of the things I love about this business too, is I've got friendships and partnerships that go back 30 plus years. And then we were, when we decided, Courtney and I, Ease, we had what we call an MVP, a minimum viable product, kind of on the street, Minnesota, that we had core people using. And Courtney had already gone to Silicon Valley. He was working actually full-time for another technology company, a co-founder there. And in December of 2014, Zenefits raises $50 million on a $500 million valuation. And they're ripping up California. So we decided Courtney was going to quit his day job and we were going to go venture pitch, raise money because we were ready to go and the market was ready. So February 5th of 2015, Courtney and I made our first venture pitch to raise capital. 23 days later, I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor in the Tenderloin at 7th and Howard in our first office. We went from first pitch to first raise, 23 days. I'm sleeping on the floor up there with our first new engineer, not on the floor with the engineer, but we had our first engineer, first success person in. And 6 months later, September of 2015, we launched East Central, which was the rework of that product. And
Wow.
given what was happening in California, and I don't want to get too long on this, but California is a market unlike most where the general agent presence is very, very strong. I'm sure you see it.
Yeah.
New York is another one. Other states
Yep.
have varying degrees, but California is very clearly has 7 very significant GAs that if you're working with small group, whether you're the biggest broker in California or the smallest broker in California, I mean, these GAs do a good job out there, I got to say.
Sure.
So we forged partnerships with those GAs. And that was strategically a focus on a market in California for a number of reasons. That and the California ecosystem was so hungry for technology. Okay. When we launched in 2015, I'd speak around a lot of ACA conferences. And in California, they were eager to consume and learn and digitize. And the marketplace was Zenefits, Gusto, and just other entities out there that were really, namely, focusing heavily on the concept of going digital and an all-in-one solution benefits HR, payroll to make your employees and group administrators' lives easier was front and center. I believe that that's going to be the same way in every single state in the nation. And for a number of reasons, we see the adoption of technology seems to concentrate around large metropolitan areas. Okay.
Sure.
When you look at where ease is going, look at the electoral college, and that's where we are. We may not spread the entire East Coast, but we're a very dominant solution in the major markets across the coast there. Florida, Georgia, Virginia, New York,
Sure.
Jersey, very, very, a lot of lives on the platform in the States.
No, I certainly never knew that story. I'm sure you've shared it before, but I hadn't heard it. I love that 2015 venture to sleeping on a mattress to getting it up and running. That's the marquee hallmark story of any successful business and brand, and no matter the industry, quite frankly, but particularly the tech side. So that's really neat. I appreciate you sharing. Let me kind of dig into something that's been on my mind that I currently don't see in ease, unless if it exists, then I don't know about it, and I certainly don't see it in other competitor platforms yet. And that is the addition of decision support tools. I see companies in the tech space that are not necessarily, they're not really benefit administrative enrollment portals, HRIS, but they have a solution that I like that I've had requested. And I just, maybe I'm crazy, I'm not a tech guy, but I feel like it's a natural extension to a platform like yours at some point in the future where an employee logs in to do an enrollment. And just like when we're on Amazon, it says, you bought this, you may be interested in that. People that bought this usually buy that. I would love to see a system that directs an employee to say, hey, based on your income and based on your family status with 3 kids, you just bought short-term disability, and most people buy an accident plan. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Does that exist, and or is that something that you've ever had on your radar, or you think it has value?
I do. And it's, I'm going to make sure that the people from our product team get a rewind of this podcast for this segment of it, because it's an active discussion at Ease. And we look at decision-making tools in a variety of ways. They're tactical decision-making tools, which is what we think has always existed inside of our platform, which is say the ability to easily lay down the 4 medical plans side by side to compare the co-pays, the deductibles, the out-of-pocket, what your net cost is. And as a broker who's been out doing a lot of enrollment meetings, I remember the days well when I'd go out and, you know, it's the 7 a.m. They just got off the night shift and this is a very blue collar thing or something.
Done it.
Yeah, many times. You put the PowerPoint slide up of what that this will date me. The $10 copay plan is going to a $25 copay, and here's your new payroll deduction. It would take these blue collar people about a millisecond to calculate the impact on their out of pocket based on how, you know what I mean? So you find that people who actually use the benefits, in some ways, you know, the guidance is one level, but that's the first level. You can take it up to an extreme now. You've touched on some of them where, say, the employee's willing to participate at a level where you can tap into things like financial databases. So you know what their mortgage balance is, you know what their mortgage payment is, you know their age, if they're a scuba diver, if they're riding a motorcycle, you have access to other insurance policies that they have in place. You know, in some way, I mean, I'm taking to extreme and make very precise recommendations. Today, the first exists and the second exists and is evolving. We are piloting right now a decision-making tool called Naya, N-A-Y-Y-A, if you're familiar with it. And I'd say it's beyond pilot. It's just not in full release all over. And there's a couple of factors that drive this. One is we need the carriers to support it, okay? And if the carriers are supportive of this, and I'm not going to mention carrier names on the podcast because this is not about advertising or anything, but I will say that there are designated carriers that have supported, and you can fully deploy a decision-making tool like you're talking about right now on ease with those carriers, and we want that list to grow to every carrier.
I mean, I feel like that's such a huge market. I have heard of Naya. I'm familiar with it. And I do know that I've seen your logo on their website, and I had a feeling that I hadn't had this conversation, but I had a feeling you were working with them in some capacity. I just didn't know to what extent. So to me, as a broker who is out there putting these solutions together for brokers, as a broker's broker, but more so, you know, I'm a for-profit entity. This isn't a nonprofit. We want to help guide employees to make the right decisions. And I just feel like it's a natural fit to use artificial intelligence to help make those decisions easy. Pardon the pun, right? And you know, it's literally
by design, my friend.
I know it, man. It's no different than, you know, how come I've made Jeff Bezos so much extra money because of that damn decision support tool? Because how many times has my wife and me been online and it's like people who bought this buy that, and I'm like, son of a damn it, and I hit the button and I buy it. So
but he's also feeling, and that's why, like, I call where I work in the frictionless world of happy land, because everyone's happy, right? I mean, nobody got displaced in what you just described. Right. Nobody gets displaced in what we're describing here. And by the way, offline or whatever, I'll introduce you, if you like, to the CEO of Naya. He might be a great guest for you someday.
Yeah, by all means. All right. Well, let's as we start to wrap up. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Let's talk about some other things. So number one on my list is I have, and I didn't mention to you earlier, but long story short, I have a lot of consulting clients. That's a side business for me. That's a very robust business. And my clients are carriers and solution providers in the tech space, a lot of them venture-backed startups, folks that are trying to really get in with brokers. And I guide them with marketing. I'm a marketing guy by trade. And one of the biggest questions I get asked by my carriers and solution providers nearly every single month when I bring them aboard and we have our conversations is, Eric, can you help me get onto the Ease platform? Can you help me get onto the XYZ platform of another one of your competitors? And I know who to guide them to and introduce them to, and that's fair. But what I keep getting from lots of the platforms is the Heisman. And what that Heisman is the hand up saying, we'd love to have you, but we're busy. We have a XYZ amount of months delay. It costs XYZ amount to get on our platform. It might be 6 to 10 months to get on. We're short on builders. We're short on engineers, like a lot of companies. Like, what's the process, I guess is my question, to help streamline a new carrier in the benefit space? And they might not be new, they're just new to ease. What's the process by which they can take to get themselves up on your platform in your to be integrated, for lack of a better word?
Okay, that's a good question. As you can imagine, we get the full range of things. Like, when you deal with medical carriers, they're regional and they're big in areas. When you look at ancillary, we could probably all list off 10 ancillaries that represent 75% of the marketplace in the small group, between the 10 of them or something. So, those become obvious. If you look at the Ease platform, those big blue chip ancillaries.
Oh, they're there for sure.
They're there because, like, when I look across 2.5 million people, I can see that each one represents a measurable percentage, not because I sold the product, because that's not what we do. I just know that if we had 10,000 small groups in, say, Texas, that a certain percentage of the product is going to be with certain carriers.
Sure.
Now, on the Ease platform, to put this into perspective, approximately 40 brands, and a brand would be like Delta, Anthem. I'm speaking brand now, I'm not promoting anything, but meaning, like, we all know as brokers that there is no one Delta,
right?
But every state has a Delta, and people think, which is, different. There's one guardian, there's one principal, but there's the Anthems and the Delta. So when I talk brand, I'm treating Delta as one brand. Okay. Mm-hmm. Over 50% of the premium on our platform is represented by 40 brands, 39 actually. Over 650 represent the other less than 50% of the premium on the platform, that long tail. So that's where we're presented with the challenge, because whether we're integrating something that's going to be used for 10,000 groups or 10 groups, the job is the same.
Right.
And so we have to make business decisions around that. And one of the solutions that's coming out in the first area that you're going to see it is in payroll, our universal payroll experience. So we're deploying universal APIs so that any payroll vendor could connect to the Ease platform, for example. Okay. And that's what our objective is to do with the carrier connections. The other area that we're very bullish on and very, very supportive on as an organization are the LIMRA LDEX standards. Because all of this just goes away if we can have an industry standard. Just goes away. My engineers can write a seamless connection to any carrier in the galaxy. There's no technical challenge on our end for any of that. It's a matter of managing the volume, and then it's not just building the connection, it's also everything that comes with managing the processes around it. Another observation I'd make in terms of connectivity is that carriers are not necessarily market ready. Okay. Many are using proprietary, essentially Excel or CSV type files. Many are still in the EDI world. Mm-hmm. Those who have migrated to APIs, which is where it's all going to go, and that is an absolute component of the solution here. But it's not really an API. They may have an API on the front end, which then connects to the legacy systems on their end, and then everything in the workflow is back to the old method of doing business. The other is APIs are not just around adds, changes, and terms, the ongoing eligibility management. APIs are required for other elements, such as what we refer to as the group structure, so that when somebody has an account with the carrier and then it's built inside Ease, we need to have that instant visibility into the two record sets to ensure that they're aligned and matched before the connection is enabled and goes live, because we don't want the first day of the connection to terminate 6 people that shouldn't be terminated, for example.
Sure.
And that's what happens when you go into the connection world. You have the superpower to change anything. In the paper-based world, a human being can intervene along the way, but like in many cases, for example, the administrator in our case has the ability to put somebody on a plan, whether eligible or not.
Yeah. No, and look, it makes sense. I kind of look at it. I don't know, when you describe that, and I get it because I've heard similar things before, it reminds me of it kind of reminds me of being a broker and when you were a broker. So, a lot of every broker in the world isn't really going out there hunting a 5-man group. Let's just be honest. They fall in their lap. There's more of those than ever, as you know, and you said, but every broker would love to swim upstream and have bigger accounts. I kind of see your platform in a similar setting where, you have to be with the top 10, top 20 carriers and have those connections properly set up. But, the equivalent of a 5-man group might be a lesser branded ancillary carrier that is dying to be on your platform to help them expand their base. But yet it's hard for them to get on. Now, it's not just you. It's hard for them to get on your platform with ease, let alone other competitors, just because of timing and efficiency and what you just kind of stated. So is there a baseline that you look for with a solution provider or an insurance carrier or a payroll provider to help expedite them getting on a platform like yourself?
It's not necessarily any vendor that would be interested, we can have a business discussion. And if you look at our marketplace, you'll see there's some that are certainly not large that we've been able to accommodate. And a lot of this has to do with what the partner's willing to do. And this is what I want to double tap on here. So we have over 5,000 digitally mapped forms in our library. And if a carrier doesn't require a form, we collect everything that's needed for it. When I was a broker, the way I used to differentiate myself was that I wasn't one of the big houses, but I was big enough and smart enough and had infrastructure that I could deliver everything they had. And one of the things that I did as a broker, they said, well, I've got all the mainline solutions. We have a couple of innovative solutions. So let's say you had a favorite couple of carriers that are not part of the Ease ecosystem. There's nothing that stops you from getting all of the data in a universal format downloaded and to build infrastructure inside your organization to be able to facilitate enrollment. Because these smaller carriers, like if you're a big partner with a small regional carrier, they're probably willing to accommodate you. That's the way it was when I was a broker. And if you like that carrier, so you can take Ease to get all that data and work with that partner to accept our because we have universal reports. I mean, if they're willing to take a universal standardized report as every single data element they need, the question is, do we have to re-engineer how it comes out? Or can you re-engineer what comes out and use it in that format? Because we can assure you it's going to come out the exact same way every single time. So you only have to do this once, for the most part. So I see brokers around the country doing this, and it becomes a tool of differentiating. You had mentioned, we talked about GAs before. And one of the things that makes our product popular in a competitive GA market is our platform allows people to differentiate the experience, because you can build your own library. Some people load it up with a lot of bilingual materials. They get professionally prepared videos to explain how flexible benefits work, and it brands their entity along the way. And Ease facilitates and supports that. So while we have these turnkey partners that you can just click through that, represent a big percentage of the market, it's sky's the limit on what you want to do with it as a broker in terms of differentiating yourself within those. The other thing, before we run out of time, I wanted to bring up a topic. One of the observations I've made is that a lot of people used to say, I don't work in small group, I just can't make enough money in it. They like the larger cases. Technology changes this. I would contend that if you wanted to roll out pet insurance, identity theft, individual life insurance, you name it, pick the mix from a marketplace to a 5,000 employee group, that the gatekeepers and HR would make it virtually impossible to get that rolled out. But if you went to 510 employee groups with a rinse and repeat play like that, they'd roll out the red carpet, because you're now making their company look like a Fortune 500 company. And when you compare the PEPMs, I don't care what state you're in, if you're in a high state or a low state on small group medical compared to large group, there's a world of difference. So if you look at a small group as not just being something that you have to drive out to and spend 16 hours on and enrolling in the paper-based days for 16 lives, I get it. That doesn't make sense, especially if you're in LA or a market where you could do one group a day that way. But if you, without leaving your office, in an automated fashion, can take all of these small groups, provide a much larger holistic set of benefits inside of a technology envelope, you are easily looking at PEPMs that range from $75 to $100 per employee per month. Find me a small group, a large group where you can come close to that. So in the days where they say, I need 10 small groups to be the same thing as 100 life group, it's the other way around. 10 life group can now generate as much revenue as a 100 life group.
No, look, I mean, you're talking to a guy, I said it earlier. I focus on small, mid-sized groups my whole life. I mean, we have some really large mega groups, but they came just naturally. We didn't hunt them out. They just came to us organically. I'm a big believer in that small, mid-sized market. I love the idea of what you just said, rinse and repeat. 10-man groups is a 100-man group, and it's just continuously duplicatable, which I think is a big deal. So spot on.
It is. The expectations too. You show me a 25 employee business owner who's typically the HR administrator at a group of that size.
Sure.
They're not expecting you, like what I thought in the old days, to go out there and take them to lunch and be there. But what they do want is Johnny on the spot service and technology, well organized. I mean, just imagine this. Close your eyes and imagine every group in your platform, 100% of the rates, the eligibility, the benefits is inside your ease platform. It's connected to all the carriers, so you're able to offer add, change, term services. Every group has on average 5.8 lines of coverage instead of the traditional 1.8 that you see in these paper-based small groups. You've quadrupled your revenue, and you've been able to do it without adding a single staff member.
No, I agree 100%. Well, listen, David, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you coming on. I think we covered a lot. You've said it all. I'm a big fan of what you've built, and I'm excited to see you continue to soar and grow. And hopefully there's a place for me to be a part of that growth. We'll continue to do what we do here on our side.
EIC. We'll see you at EIC, Ease Innovation Conference.
Yeah, tell everybody, when's that coming up? Where is it? EIC is the Ease Innovation Conference.
Yep. So we do this every year. When we kicked it off, the first one, it was a virtual conference. I mean, not a virtual conference. It was a live conference, but then we had to go virtual the last 2 years. The Ease Innovation Conference is this year, June 21st to June 22nd. And we're going back to part live. It's going to be a hybrid this year. And it's hosted here in Las Vegas, which is one of the larger offices for Ease. We're based in San Francisco, but Las Vegas is where we have a lot of our support and sales. And it'll be at the Fabulous Wynn. So it's not only a host of great partners and a learning experience, and we have genius desks, and it's a great experience, but it's also a fun time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, definitely. I did not know the date. So to repeat for everybody listening, because this will be out in plenty of time for you to get your tickets. It's June 21st and 22nd at the 2022 at the Wynn in Vegas. I had to mention 22 because this is evergreen. It's a podcast. So if you're listening to the podcast in the year 2027, thank you. But check their website for the 2027 version of the Ease Innovation Conference. Jokes aside. So anyway, thank you, David, for coming on. If anybody wants to connect with David, you can find him on LinkedIn. You can check out their website, ease.com. Remember, we said it earlier. He secured ease.com, EASE.com. And it's been a pleasure, man. And I don't do any of this podcast stuff without a team behind me. So for everybody behind the scenes at the Rockstars Rocking podcast, I'm Eric Silverman. That, everybody, is and was and always will be David Reid, founder and CEO of Ease. And I hope everybody makes it a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.